In this next demo, let's learn about how we fetch results in Psycopg 2 and start using them in Python. So I'm back here in my demo script here, which dropped a table if it existed, created it, and then inserted a couple of records. From here, let's say we want to do a select star statement on the records that we had inserted, and then read those results in Python. So the way that we would do that is using cursor.execute select star from table 2. How do we fetch the results? We can use a number of fetch methods that is offered to us on Cursor. For example, we can call cursor.fetchAll, set that equal to result variable, and print that result. Let's save this and see what happens when we run it. We get back a list of tuples of 1 true and 2 false, which represent all of the records that come from our select star statement above. So the cursor also offers a couple of other fetch methods that we'd be interested in using. It offers not only fetch all, but also fetch many, where we can specify a number of how many records we want to fetch from the result. And we can also do a fetch one, which fetches the first result in the result set as well. The important thing to know about all of these fetch methods is that it relies upon the result set of the previous SQL statement that was executed using cursor.execute. If you did a fetch all, it will wound up taking all of the records of the previous statement that you executed. So back in our code, let's see how that works. We did a select star, where we then called the cursor.fetchAll to print the result, which includes these 2 rows. Let's see what happens if we had injected 3 rows into our table and then we called a fetch one. So let's go ahead and make sure that 3 rows were injected in our table first. Save that. And let's call a result 2 equal to cursor.fetch1 instead. We'll print the result of result 2 here. And we'll call the result of result 1 fetch all. Okay, let's hit save and rerun our script. We see that the fetch all had fetched all of our records, and then the fetch one returned nothing. That's because the fetch all had basically taken all of the records that it wanted to fetch from the result of that select star statement. And then by the time you called fetch one, there were no other records that were displayed in from the select star statement. We could see this a little bit more clearly if we used fetch many instead. So from fetch all, which takes all the records from the select and doesn't offer anything left once you try to fetch more, let's do a fetch many and only fetch the first 2 results that come from the select star instead. We should see something from result 2 once we then call fetch 1. Rerunning our script here and renaming our print statement to fetch many of 2. Cool, we see that fetch many of 2 took the first 2, and then by the time we called fetch 1, it fetched the next row in the table, which was the row with ID 3. Great. And what would happen if we had created a result 3 and we try to call a fetch 1 here? Let's go ahead and rerun that and see. Fetch many of 2 took the first 2 rows, fetch 1 took the third, and then we didn't have any more rows in that select star, so then calling fetch 1 again returned nothing. We could see that if we called cursor.execute above result 3, and we hit save and then looked at our results again, fetch many of 2 and fetch 1 had relied upon the initial select star statement, and then because we had a select star statement that came later and then we called fetch 1 took the results from the previously executed select star statement instead, which is exactly how it works. Awesome. So let's review all together all the commands that Psycopg 2 offers us. So Psycopg 2 first off offers us an ability to establish a connection, which starts a session and it begins accepting transactions and also begins a transaction for us. We have an ability to set a cursor from that connection that we've established so that we can start executing commands. We can execute those commands and pass in SQL strings, whether that's a plain string or using string composition. Then we can commit those transactions, which are not done automatically for us, and we can optionally roll them back as well. We can fetch the results of any executed SQL statement that was passed prior to fetching them using fetch all, fetch many, and fetch one. And then finally, we can close out the connection and close out the cursor as soon as we're done interacting with our database and we want to end our session. Those are all the basic ways of using Psycopg 2. This may or may not look simple to you, but the thing that we need to do to get very familiar with Psycopg 2 is practice. So let's go ahead and start practicing the use of Psycopg 2 before we move forward.